In this video, I want to compare a snack bar and a toast. So let's start by understanding what a toast is. If I click a button here, you see a little non-intrusive message comes up with a plant name and a location. Now this is very much in the Android style of the message shows and then disappears without user interaction, which means the user does not have to click on something. Generally, we like that in Android. We like minimizing the clicks that the user experiences while navigating through our application. But look at the placement of the toast. You see it kind of appears in a rounded box area, kind of right around here. A snack bar is different because a snack bar appears at the bottom of the screen, and it offers us an option where the user can click on the snack bar to get further details. So, toast is simple. If we take a look at our existing method that's getting called by the onPause method, and by the way, we did this in a previous video if you're curious how we put it together. For a toast, we say toast with a capital T and then make text. We pass in something that is a context. An activity is a context, so we can simply pass in the keyword this to say pass in an object of the current activity. Then we have the text that we want to show the user, and then we have how long we want the toast to appear, and then we simply invoke show, and that will display the toast to the user. That works out great for a toast, but let's consider how we can do this with a snack bar. So I'm going to reuse these lines a bit later. I'm going to leave them there. We'll reuse them in just a bit. In the same method that's invoked by that pause button, remember the pause button here, which currently shows the toast, we are going to use a snack bar. So I'm going to say snackbar.make, which is similar to toast.makeText. One footnote though, this will require several different lines, not just one line like a toast. So snackbar.make, this is the trickiest part. We need to be a view. Now let's remember how our screen is put together. Latitude, longitude, GPS age, Eastern Redbud, all of the stuff that you see here, which is falling kind of in this coordinator layout, or constraint layout, that is in a file that begins with the word content. So if I say content, if I say content, GPS a plant, this represents all of that look and feel. Now, so you see, here's our content. Now that's contained by activity GPS a plant, and all the way up on activity GPS a plant, there's something called a coordinator layout. That's what the snack bar needs a reference to in order to show. So while the recording was off, I added this Android ID right here. So some kind of unique identifier that didn't exist previously, but I've added it now so that I can call this coordinator layout. I can reference it. I simply typed it in Android:ID, and then the @ plus ID /, that's telling the compiler to generate a constant for this under the covers. That's all that's doing. And then the name that goes along with that constant is called GPS coordinator layout. So that's what I did prior to the video. Of course, I'll commit and push to GitHub as always, but just make a note, that's what I added specifically to our activity. Now I mentioned that's the trickiest part, but you only have to do it that one time. Let's go ahead and continue where we left off. So find view by ID and then r.id. Remember what I called that? I called it GPS coordinator layout. Do you see it appears here as I start typing, kind of like an autocomplete, because I did that @ plus ID /, which tells the compiler to generate this for me. If you're following along and you don't see this in your dropdown, I recommend just rebuilding your project. That will kick the compiler and tell it to generate that unique ID. So that's the tough part. Okay, now next we put whatever message we want the user to see. So we will say something like paused GPS. Okay, and then finally, how long do we want it to show up? Snack bar, take a look. Length short appears just for a little bit. Unspecified time, but just a little bit. Length long means it appears for a longer time. And then length indefinite means it stays up there until the user dismisses it. Let's go with length long. Okay, terminate with a semicolon. Now, I did mention, unlike toast, it is going to take several lines to create the snack bar. So with my cursor on make, I hold Control-Alt and press V, and that is going to save the result of this method into a variable. I'll call that variable snack bar, just like so. So there's our snack bar. Okay, now I'll say snackbar.show. Okay, and I'm going to comment, there's more to go, but I'm going to comment out the lines below just so we can kind of get the state of the union, see what we're looking at right now. And we'll go ahead and deploy. The application has deployed. Take a look at what happens when I click the pause button. We get a snack bar that comes up that says pause GPS. Now, what's interesting is you notice what moved and what did not move when I did that. You see the floating action button moved. Nothing else moved. Now, why is that? The floating action button is defined in the activity GPS plant. Everything else is defined in content GPS plant. So these are the two layers that we're looking at. The layer on top has the floating action button and the snack bar. The layer down below has all of these widgets. So that's part of material design. The concept that a screen is not flat, but rather a screen has layers, and these layers can move independently of each other, as you see here. Very interesting. One thing though is there's a space here for an undo, and we're not, or any kind of text like that, and we're not currently taking advantage of that space. So let's do that now. This is a little bit tricky, but nonetheless not impossible. So what I'm going to do is say snackbar.setAction. There's one action that we can kind of reserve, and that's what we're doing here. We're saying this is what I want to have happen if the user clicks on the right. Set action, undo, just like so, and then comma, and then we'll say new undo listener. Now this is an inner class which we have not yet created, this thing called undo listener. So let's go ahead and create that inner class. An inner class is a class within a class. Easy as that. So in my inner class, I'm going to say class, and take a look at where I am. I'm still within the GPS plant activity. I'm not within another method, but I am still within the GPS plant class. So class within a class. Class undo listener implements view.onClickListener. Okay? Open curly, close curly, just like any other class. I see I have a red line, Alt-Enter, implement methods, onClick. So, this is the method that will be invoked when the user clicks on the snack bar's action. I don't know what else to call it but an action. For this, you know what? What the heck? Why don't we reuse that toast that we abandoned earlier? So I'm just going to do a little bit of reshuffling here because we know everybody's shuffling. And we will, boom, take that out. Now what's going to happen is when we click the snack bar, the toast is going to rise up. I do have to make one subtle change here. Undo listener is an inner class. This is referring to undo listener, but this and the make text method actually has to be an activity. So I just need to kind of put kind of a qualifier on there and say GPS a plant.this. And then the line is good. Save, deploy, let's see what we get. So our application is now up. Let's look very closely as I press the pause. Now look, there's an undo here that wasn't there before. I click on the undo and our toast comes up. Now I probably ought to put some things in here so the toast makes sense, like Eastern Redbud and Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden. Just like so. Now I click on, let me dismiss my keyboard. Click on the pause, get the snack bar, click on the undo, get the toast, plant name Eastern Redbud, Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden. Let's look at this at our own pace. I'm going to snap a breakpoint in the pause button and also in the undo listener that goes along with the snack bar. So pause button, we see the breakpoint stops, F8 to execute, F8, F9, quickly tab over, quickly hit the undo, and you see when the undo hits, now take a look where that breakpoint stops. It's in the on-click listener, and I choose F9, and our toast appears. So that's the difference between a toast, which is rather straightforward, and a snack bar, which appears towards the bottom and has its own action listener. I hope this video has been helpful. Look forward to seeing you in the next. Thank you very much.